includes an interstate redesign in Columbus, Ohio, which is running nearly 20 years behind schedule and double the initial costs, and California's much maligned high-speed rail, which costs have tripled. Those and 13 other projects account for more than $12 billion in federal taxpayer money committed to assist state and local officials who struggle to complete the improvements. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy provided a list to Congress, and Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst made it public Wednesday. She said she wants to expose some of the biggest black eyes for central planners in government.
Medical Examiner says Hulk Hogan died of a heart attack last week. It also says he had suffered from leukemia and an irregular heart rhythm. Hogan, whose real name was Terry Bollea, died July 24th in Florida. He was 71. More on these stories at townhall.com. An abrupt change in leadership today in Lithuania as that country's prime minister resigns following probes, protests, civil unrest, and much more in the last few weeks. More on the story from correspondent Charles de Ledesma.
Tutas Palutskas has stepped down following probes into his business dealings. The scandals prompted protests in the Baltic country's capital, calling for his resignation. Consequently, the country's president announced the PM's resignation to the media on Thursday morning. Palutskas is a social democrat, and he ascended to the role late last year after a three-party coalition formed following a parliamentary election in October. He wrote in a letter to Social Democratic Party members to say that he's stepping down, seeing how the scandals are hindering the work of the government. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
And you'll find more on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is an America Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Vote for me, oh, such a breeze. It's just another word for nothing left to lose. Over me.
All right, folks, you certainly know what that theme song means by now. That's right. It's time for another episode of America Matters. I'm your host, Leo Zaki, and I've got a tremendous guest with us here today, Candace Beaumont. I'm going to tell you about her in just a second. I'm so glad she's here with us and really glad that she's giving us her time. But before anything, I got to give a big shout out, hello, welcome, and thank you to all the listeners out there on 93.7 KPGF, as well as AM 1060, and to all the folks out there on the Answer Network, the Salem Network, Radio for America, the Kevin Jackson Network, and of course, AUN Television. And a big thank you to all the folks at those respective networks for helping get this program out to all of you so you can get some really great information. That's what we like to do here at America Matters. Don't forget, you can always tune in and check this out on America Matters Media's Facebook or LinkedIn page, or simply go to Zaki Radio on Rumble or YouTube, and make sure you follow us on Instagram for sure. Do that and follow me at Leo S. Zaki on Instagram and X as well. Got a lot of great content. We're going to keep giving it to you. There's tons of great episodes, so make sure you check them all out and share them with your friends. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our amazing guest, Candace Beaumont. She does a lot. This woman is a brilliant lady. She's been working with a lot of high net worth families, taking care of what's called home office. And what she does is she makes sure that their money is getting invested appropriately and helping create not only wealth for those families, but creating opportunities for so many with those investments. Candace, welcome to America Matters.
Thank you for having me, Leo.
It's an absolute pleasure. And, you know, home office might be something that most folks don't really know about. But what you do is you're very involved with protecting the net worth of, multi-generational wealth. And I know a lot of folks out there might have a negative view of multi-generational wealth. And I would disagree, not because like I'm technically a part of that to a degree, but because isn't the whole point of creating wealth to be able to pass it on to your children so that they can continue to do well? Because from my experience, my family's done quite well. We've also gotten hit quite hard, but we're still in the fight. We're still alive and able to do a lot of things, but more than most folks. But one thing I was always taught by my grandparents was that when you do well, you got to give back, and you give back to things and causes that matter, whether they're in your community or around the world. But no matter what, that wealth that you've created, when you have the ability to say, I can part with this and give it to, say, a charity for whatever cause. Maybe it's something that immediately impacts your family. I know for my family, it was diabetes. I have also, both my grandparents were veterans, one in World War II, one in Korea. We donate to veterans organizations, things that we're passionate about and want to help those people. And we know that by donating and giving to charitable causes, that money, and obviously you got to vet those charities and all that, can also go a long way to actually getting real results, as opposed to just waiting for, look, the government, I'm in Los Angeles. They've been working on the 5 freeway since I was in high school. It's still not done, but there's so many things that you can do, and you're protecting those individuals. So why don't you tell folks a little bit about what exactly home office is?
Sure. So a family office is basically like an investment office for a high net worth family. Typically, if a family has more than 100 million in assets, they can create their own family office versus having their money managed by, outside private banks. And that means they have a dedicated team looking at investments across every asset class, from fixed income to hedge funds to private equity to real estate to crypto. So really kind of looking at every asset class and trying to achieve alpha and trying to get outperformance and trying to manage their money to grow wealth with the minimum amount of risk. So, the goal is to get risk-adjusted, consistent returns annually, and then to compound them.
Well, that's the goal, right? You want to keep building on what you've earned. And a lot of folks, they worked really hard to create whatever it was. So many people, it's definitely hard today, but it's not impossible to achieve that level of success in life. But when you get there, you want to make sure you're able to hold on to it, because there's a lot of ways. Because when you're not earning, or from maybe you hit it big or whatever, or it doesn't, big has so many different levels of meaning to so many different people. Like hitting it big could be making, $100,000 or $1 million or 10 or, $100+ million. But you want to be able to have that hard work that you've now turned into physical, cash. Even though it might be in a bank, but you want it to not only sustain indefinitely, but you want to be able to grow it, because you're also fighting all sorts of things like inflation and currency devaluation. And there's all sorts of things that are happening in the world at any time. And of course, God forbid, some sort of hardship befalls you. You want to be able to take care of that.
Exactly.
So, no, I think that's really amazing. And it takes a lot of work to do that. And what you're doing and there's tons of different family offices. There's a lot of people that have done well, and that's awesome. I give a lot of respect to people that do well. It's about what you do next. And I know that I want to ask you a little bit more about what it is that you help people do next, because that really that's your role. And people, when they get to that level, they're kind of like, well, I specialized in this one thing, but I'm very curious about these other things, because people come, as soon as you have a lot of money, people start knocking on your door and being like, hey, we're looking for an angel investor or another round or whatever of capital injection along those lines. So when we get back from this first break, I want to talk to you a little bit more about that. But I think it's great. I'm really glad you're here with us, Candace. So everybody out there, please stay tuned. This is America Matters. I'm Leo Zaki, and today I've got Candace Beaumont with us. We'll be right back.
At A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, we've been accomplishing happy feet for over 30 years.
We offer a various range of shoe styles and sizes for both men and women. From all-season shoes and orthotics to work boots and safety shoes, our professional and reliable staff possesses the knowledge to help you find the proper shoes to fit your needs. Hard to fit? Hard to find?
A Proper Fit Footwear is here to give our customers happy feet. We make people aware of potential foot problems as we're sizing their feet. suggesting the right art support and guiding them to the proper shoes for their needs.
Stop by a Proper Fit Footwear at 4001 South Virginia Street in the Reno Town Mall today and allow the owner Mike Jones and our fabulous staff to find the perfect pair of shoes tailored to your specific needs.
A Proper Fit Footwear in the Reno Town Mall, the home of Happy Feet, where comfort and your feet meet.
We're talking to Victor from Precision Diamonds. Victor, I don't know anything about jewelry at all. I don't know anything about diamonds. I need to get something for my lady.
Well, you know what, Jim? Come on in. We are your local jeweler, and we want to be your personal shopper. For 27 years, we know that we are doing business directly with the right manufacturers. We have negotiated great prices. They have the right trend, the right designs, quality, from earrings to pendants to you name it, we've got it.
That means you're going to help me from beginning to end.
My family, we've been working for this for a long time. I don't know how to change oil or anything, but I know diamonds. I know jewelry. So if you want to come in, you don't have to worry about anything. We'll find the exact gift that you're looking for that's going to make you look like $1 million, that you really took the time and effort to choose something, not just say, I'll take this. You know, your lady will know that you took the time and found a beautiful gift for her.
Thank you, Victor. Precision Diamonds, your local jeweler across from the convention center.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we're back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zaki, and joining me today is Candace Beaumont. Well, she's in charge of, well, quite a lot of net worth with what she does with home office, family office, whatever the proper title is. I mean, I hear it interchanged all the time, so please forgive me on that. But I mean, you're managing quite a bit. You're with the Salsano Group, and from my understanding, they're the number 6 ranked billionaire group in Central America with a lot of things.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, it's a family office for a self-made billionaire. That's
fantastic. And so tell us, like, in family office, these folks, they come to you, and what are some of the things that, I mean, aside from, making sure that their capital is, staying well in perpetuity, what are some of the things that you commonly deal with on a day-to-day basis?
So, I mean, day to day, for starters, I get like 600 emails a day. Everybody's trying to pitch us, whether that be like, private equity funds, hedge funds, real estate funds, people with private deals, direct deals. We also see the best deal flow. So when Elon Musk is taking investors for Neuralink, that hits my desk. So we tend to get, kind of the best deal flow that's there on the street in every sector. And oftentimes, we might be an LP, which is like a limited partner investor in a private equity fund. So the private equity funds we're invested in will come to us oftentimes with co-investments too, sometimes with lower fees. And then, we also have a network of other family offices, and the other family offices often come to us, with transactions to co-invest in as well. So the great thing is when you're part of that network, there's a network of other kind of high net worth families of influence. And, those families kind of communicate with each other and work with each other, and often invite each other to co-invest in their transactions. So it allows you to co-invest in different asset classes and different sectors where your counterparty is, best in class. So you really have access to kind of the most cutting edge investments across every asset class, across every sector.
Well, you guys are on the cutting edge, and it's more than just, trading stocks. It's about actually creating, businesses in all sorts of different realms. And, some of those might even be like startups, for example. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were an early stage investor in Airbnb, and
that turned out pretty good.
Yeah, no, it turned out great. So yeah, we've been an early stage investor in a number of companies that have worked, and so we tend to get access to, high quality deal flow.
No, that's really cool. A lot of listeners out there might be thinking, this is, too rich for my blood. I mean, I could never get into something like this. Is there a way that people that have, lower net worth than, say 100 million, the regular American, is there ways that they can get together with other people that are like-minded, trying to grow their capital, that they can sort of find their way into this sort of realm where they have someone like you that can help them out?
Look, I think if people are, have a net worth of, 5-10 million, then it is possible to kind of get into those networks whereby then you're an accredited investor. So I think if you're an accredited investor, there's opportunities for investing in graded, these type of asset classes. If you're not accredited, which is, kind of a few million net worth and up, then it's actually really hard. And you're really looking at investments in the public markets. So, you might be able to buy, Blackstone's or Carlyle stock. So while you can't write multi-million-dollar ticket, or you don't meet the 10 million minimum to invest in their fund, you can potentially buy their stock and participate that way.
And just kind of staying in tune with what their investments, what those companies' investments are, and kind of just, paying attention really, so that you can kind of see if it's this is where I need to put my capital.
Exactly. So I mean, for a smaller investor, you don't have the same level of access, and you just won't. But you can still try to have on a lower level some kind of asset diversification. And I think, look, the best investors and family office investors, the key to outperformance is that diversification across asset classes, whereby you have some real estate, you have some cash, you have some bonds. Now I think everybody has a tiny bit of crypto.
Yeah,
coming in asset class.
Crypto's a hot topic right now. I mean, it's been, especially today and this week, it's been blowing up. What is your stance, and maybe even your family office's stance on crypto? I mean, it's something that you guys are for, believe in. You look at it as a kind of like a get in, get out, make some money sort of thing, long term. I mean, what's your view on that?
Yeah, look, I mean, we think obviously with this administration change, you've got the president of the United States behind crypto. Before you had in the old administration, the government was not behind it and was trying to overregulate it. So I think, look, it's very dependent on government regulation. So there are risks. But that said, for the next 3 years or so, we've got a president that's 100% behind this asset class and wants to grow it. And that's going to mean there's a lot of opportunities in crypto. And we're actually actively looking right now at tokenizing different assets. So there's the opportunity to tokenize, everything from gold mines to real estate, to any real asset, or even interest in companies. So I think you're going to see the securitization with crypto and into the digital economy of a lot of assets. And look, that's going to be very interesting over the next 3 years, because the administration is really behind this asset class. And while they are having some regulations, they're not over-regulating it. So I think it's going to be an interesting time for crypto certainly for the next 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll see what happens thereafter.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely an exciting time. I mean, a lot of people are talking about it. It's become a household thing to talk about. I mean, I remember when I first learned about Bitcoin in college, I kind of sloughed it off, and that was probably one of the bigger mistakes I ever made in my life. But that's okay, because I still got in at a way lower price than it is today, so I'm happy with that. But do you think we're in store for a financial reset with the way things are sort of just this sort of brave new world with things like crypto and tokenization?
Well, I've been saying we're in for a financial reset for the past few years. And I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but I do think it's coming. We've never had a bull market for this long. I think we've had a bull market now since 2008. So we're getting close to a 20-year bull market, which would be highly unusual.
Even with the COVID dip.
I mean, that wasn't really a dip, because I mean, that was like the economy was being stimulated to such a crazy degree, with, zero interest rates. And so we didn't really there was no economic decline. I mean, there was a short-term issue for some small businesses that had to close, but there was so much government stimulus that came into the picture that there wasn't really hard economic times, quite the opposite. Things started booming during COVID, not busting. So we haven't had, since 2008, we haven't had any real correction. So people now, they don't think if you say there's going to be market, no, it's a new paradigm. We don't have market dips. We don't have recessions. We certainly don't have depressions. Like that's like the olden days. That's like, it's a new economy now. It's a new bull market. It's a party every night. Don't you know? Like it's cool. So I just don't think that's realistic. And I think there's an asset bubble in a lot of asset classes. So I think you've had massive appreciation. I mean, if you got your 3-year-old child and you said, okay, pick investments for me, and you did this over the past 15 years, it didn't matter if they picked real estate, they picked art, they picked any stock on the board that was like, basic company that they'd heard of. Everything went up. So you didn't have to be smart. You didn't have to have edge. You just had to be in the game. And then if you
have diamond hands, so to speak, not panic sell and just kind of hold on, ride it through and ride it up.
Yeah, you just had to buy anything and it went up, right? So that's not normal, right?
But you mean like big companies like Nvidia or GE, or an airline or something like that.
Yeah, everything went up. Every asset class, like I said, every asset class from art to real estate to equities in the market, like from every sector.
Do you think anything has to do with like the inflation of the currency?
Well, I think the value of the dollar has always been depreciating over time, but you still haven't had this extensive kind of bubble market. So I do think when the bubble bursts, there'll be a reality check for a lot of people. And I think when it does burst, I think it's got some legs though. I think it won't, there's a number of things that could trigger it. I think we were lucky when the US was going into Iran that they didn't close the Straits of Hormuz. If they closed the Straits of Hormuz, you could have triggered the asset bubble to burst because you would have had oil going to, $200 a barrel. There's a number of things that could trigger like a reset. I'm on the board of, Aspis, a cybersecurity company that has like military grade endpoint security for cell phones. And I think you will see more cybersecurity incidents. And I think that's a real risk whereby, our banking system is vulnerable to, foreign governments, hacking it. And it's only because they haven't chosen to do it. If they wanted to do it, they could hack our banking system and we could have a major financial crash. So I think there's lots of things that could trigger something going wrong. We're just lucky that for whatever reason, nobody wants to pull that trigger. But at some point,
I think a lot of it would do with, because the dollar is it's the petrodollar and it's what everybody trades with. And if that were to go down and take a significant hit, it's going to not just impact us as Americans, but the whole world is going to really feel that. And as hard as life is here in America, imagine how life is hard in other parts of the world and how many billions of people would be so negatively impacted by that. And that financial reset, it's just it's a scary thing to think about how it could, eventually we'll make our way out of it. We're human beings. We're resilient. We'll figure it out, but there's going to be a hard time if that takes place. And I think there's a lot of things that are being put into play now that can help mitigate that. Would you say?
I think there's things that are put in place to mitigate that. And I think you're exactly right. I mean, if the US has a very unique standing because, global trade is priced in dollars, and certainly, oil is priced in dollars and other commodities. And if the US dollar is not the global reserve currency, then the US suddenly has to, loses their ability to print money and they have to balance their budget. Obviously, we know budget doesn't balance. If that happens, the standard of living in the United States would go down dramatically and the value of the dollar would go down dramatically. And the United States could become like Argentina literally overnight. So, it would be very hard to get out of something like that. But I think now we were safe and the US dollar is a world reserve currency. And it seems like there's not, for the next few years at least, it seems like there's not going to be any diversion out of that. But at some point, it's a risk.
Well, let's keep betting on America. And we're going to talk a little bit, keep asking you some more questions. We just got to take our bottom of the hour break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zaki, and joining me today is Candace Beaumont. We'll be right back.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. I'm here to warn you about telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Some of these scammers may say threatening things like you will be arrested if you don't make payments or provide personal information. Do not fall for these tricks. These calls are not from us. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you for information or money. If you receive a call like this, hang up. Never give the caller your personal information, like your Social Security number or bank account, or send money in any form, cash, gift cards, wire transfers, or prepaid debit cards. Report the call to our law enforcement arm, the Office of the Inspector General, at oig.ssa.gov. Share this information with your friends and family.
Hi, I'm Noreen Leary, CEO of the Veterans Guest House. Guest House is a home away from home for our veterans and their families who travel to Reno for medical care. Our house is more than just a warm bed. It's a place of camaraderie where veterans can find support and long-lasting friends. We serve veterans, men and women, young and old, Navy, Army, Marines, Coast Guard, and Air Force. Wherever they hail from and whatever their circumstance, the Veterans Guest House is ready to support them. The reason we feel so strongly about our mission is that we know that many veterans would forgo their medical treatments because they simply can't afford the accommodations. The guest house is one of a kind in the country, funded entirely through private donations. Want to know how you can help? There are many ways you can be involved, from volunteering, providing dinners, or supplying items from our wish list. Find out more about the guest house at www.veteransguesthouse.org. Serving veterans today, tomorrow, and for years to come.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
All right, folks, we're back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zaki, and joining me today is Candace Beaumont, the brilliant financial mastermind of so much. She's been doing a lot with family offices, making sure that people are keeping their wealth and growing it. And we were just kind of talking about how the U.S. Reserve currency is, it's the world currency and so many things. And what we're now seeing on the horizon post Big Beautiful Bill, the Big Beautiful Bill is now the Genius Bill. And it ties into crypto. And could you elaborate a little bit for our listeners on that?
Yeah, sure. I think the Genius Bill is interesting because they're putting some regulations around stable coins, and in particular they're making sure that stable coins that are tied to the US dollar, they actually own US dollar reserves or treasuries. So I think that will help to keep demand for US treasuries and US dollars at a fairly high rate because of that regulation. So I think it's a great bill. And I think it's good for crypto. It's not over-regulating, but it's putting America first.
That's what we want here in America, is America first. And so when you talk about stable coins, are you talking about like USDC coin?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's so for those who don't know what USDC or USDC coin or USD coin is, it's a stable coin, which means it's a cryptocurrency, but it matches the value of the dollar. It's not like one of these like pump and dumps or like a Ripple or something like that. It's just essentially the crypto version of the US dollar to a degree, if that's the best way I can simplify it for folks that aren't too versed in it. So, and oftentimes, so like when you want to trade crypto or buy crypto, for example, like on a platform like Coinbase or whatever, like you put money in, but then it gets turned into a USDC coin, or you sell it and you want to turn it into dollars. Well, it's got to go to USDC coin first. And then you can say, I want to divest this into my actual bank account and turn it into real money. So So more stable coins, and I think we're going to see a lot more coins that are with this tokenization, as you mentioned, like pairing it with physical entities, like you mentioned off air. I think gold mines.
Exactly. As I said before, like we're starting to see a lot of tokenization of assets. So a company I'm on the board of is tokenizing their gold assets as well. So we're going to see a lot more tokenization and securitization of real assets. And so then there's going to be, it's not a pump and dump of a stable coin, of some kind of meme coin. There's a real asset backing up that coin. And that's interesting. I think
Kind of like
that's
how the dollar used to be when it was backed by gold, and then this sort of BRICS notion where it had like, just essentially physical assets that supported its value.
exactly.
So do you think we're heading towards a digital, gone will be the days our physical cash, the need for physical cash, and moving to this what was that the federal they're talking about doing a coin with the CBDC, central bank decentralized currency. Are we headed there?
I hope not. I hope people have the freedom to use cash. And I think the digital economy is dangerous, and
Certainly volatile.
yeah. So I think it's dangerous to take it too far. I think people should still have the freedom to, if the Amish want to live like the Amish on a farm and not use electricity and not have any digital footprint, they should be able to buy and sell goods with cash, or however they want to barter. So I think we got to be careful that we don't take it too far and mandate any kind of digital economy or digital CBDs. So I think that would be, obviously certain governments would like it because it gives them total transparency into everyone's transactions. Your maid that gets paid for cash,
but you lose your privacy.
You lose your privacy. So I mean, you lose control, because they could decide to. It gives government or whoever's in control of that system a lot of control. They could say, okay, you're too fat, so your central bank digital currency, it doesn't work at McDonald's because we think you should be eating salad, right?
Because it puts a strain on the healthcare system because of your poor eating habits, and they can.
So your point, you won't be able to buy McDonald's. So I mean, it could be taken to the extent of going too far with control, and I think that's dangerous.
I agree. I think privacy is something that people are so willing to give up nowadays way too easily. Like, you get an update on your phone and you're just like, I just want to use my phone, and you just agree to the terms of service, even though you've never read the contract. It's a million miles long. You're just like, get to the bottom, agree. I just want to use my technology. And a lot of folks don't necessarily know what they give up when they accept those things, or, not quite like cookies, but like to a degree, like cookies on from a website. But, people just having that ability to kind of do what they want, because what we've seen with, places like China, for example, where they have a social credit score, that if they don't stay in line or abide by whatever rules, they can be locked out of transportation even, and publicly shunned and all that stuff like that. But when it comes to like having a currency that is so heavily monitored, and if it's everything that you do, and let's say there's a political regime in office that really infringes on freedom of speech, for example, if you, let's say, partake in, you specifically want to buy from companies that are against that regime, or supporting companies that don't agree with the regime, or you simply just speak out openly, they can essentially turn off your access to currency, and then that would lock you out of society. And it's an extreme, but it's not an impossibility. And you always have to factor those in.
Exactly. And that's dangerous. So I think that's why you don't want to go totally digital. You want to give people the freedom to keep using cash, and you don't want to go to a total digital economy. I think it could be very dangerous if we do.
Yeah. I mean, I believe in dangerous freedom over, I guess, safe servitude. I know there's a proper quote for that, but I do believe in dangerous freedom. People have to be able to fall on their face at some point, right? You have to be able to make those choices in life. And because we've really kind of done away, well, especially here in the first world in America, we've kind of done away with, what's it called? Darwinism. To a
Totally.
degree.
Totally.
So that's just kind of where we're at with all that. But you've got a magazine that you guys publish a lot of stuff. And could you tell us about Impact Wealth?
Sure. So I mean, Impact Wealth magazine. It covers ultra high net worth families. It covers families that are having an impact and doing good for the world and doing good for the planet. And it gets over 1 million impressions a month online digitally, and goes out to a few 100,000 people on digitally on distribution. And then physically, it's a quarterly magazine. It's in the private jet FBOs in LA and Miami and New York. So it has a really interesting readership, kind of that top 1% of society. And a lot of the issues in the magazine cater them, such as like legal issues with AI, or issues with family trusts and estates, or asset management issues. And then we tend to feature interesting families that are, doing interesting things, philanthropy or in healthcare or with longevity. So all of those things, like, there's so many interesting, within healthcare, there's so many interesting longevity initiatives with stem cells and other treatments that you can do, or hyperbaric oxygen chambers. So we really kind of cover everything from like longevity, health, to running your assets, to getting the right legal advice, to how to effectively invest or monetize, artificial intelligence. So it's got like a kind of a very broad reach, and we also cover really interesting, impactful billionaire families that are making a difference in the world too.
That's fantastic. So can people sign up and get access to that? Just the regular average Joe who wants to know what the big mucky mucks are up to, and somehow find a way to invest in some of those things that they're doing?
Yeah, no, if you go to impactwealth.org, you can sign up and subscribe to the magazine. Totally.
That's fantastic. And I understand that there's a TV show in the works?
Yes, we're talking to producers about having Impact Wealth TV to follow the making of the magazine and feature some of the families that are featured in the magazine as well. And we often feature celebrities, so it's, it can be quite interesting to kind of get a backdoor seat and view into kind of the lifestyles of the rich and famous, kind of under the covers of how the magazine comes together and how we make it and what goes into that. So we think it's going to be quite fun, but we're still in kind of casting and pre-production for some of the brands and et cetera that will feature on the show. So it's early days, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I mean, there's always drama. You know what they say, more money, more problems, right? From what you've seen being around high net worth individuals, I mean, what is the one thing that you see is like the hardest thing for families that have that high net worth to deal with?
That's a good question. I think, look, I think it's probably raising children and figuring out how, there's the saying from shirt sleeve to shirt sleeves. And typically by the third generation, the children have lost the money. So I think, look, your biggest asset in life is your family and your kids. And making sure there's some more challenges when you have extreme wealth and the kids are flying on private planes, to make sure the kids are grounded. And it can be very difficult to live in the shadow of someone who's achieved such a high level of excellence, that how are you ever going to outperform them? And so a lot of children of very wealthy parents, they have to live in that shadow, and that can be quite challenging. And so really kind of raising kids that have the right values, that are motivated to excel, and that can carry on that family legacy, both from a business standpoint as well as from a giving back and philanthropic standpoint, that's probably one of the biggest challenges for high net worth families.
I understand that. I've had a lot of friends that come from high net worth families, and unfortunately, some of them aren't around today still because of, they just kind of fall through the cracks with that. So yeah, parenting is a big deal. We got to bring the nuclear family back here, especially in America, but around the world. I want to talk to you a little bit more about things like that when we get back from our last break here on America Matters. I'm Leo Zaki, and joining me is Candace Beaumont. We'll be right back.
My name is Leo Zaki, and I was born and raised in California. My family's been in California for over 100 years. In 1928, my great-grandfather started Zaki Farms here in Los Angeles, and it became the largest poultry company on the West Coast. We also became the largest privately owned employer in the state of California. Zaki Farms was my life. I started at the bottom, and I worked my way all the way up to becoming vice president. I know what hard work is. I put in the time. I've done it. In California, from growing up to California today, 2 different places. What happened to California? Things keep getting worse. I'm running for governor because California is my home. I'm coming in with common sense solutions to clean up California. Political corruption is what's holding California back. The politicians have created these problems. When I'm elected governor, on day one, the first 5 things I'm going after are drought, homelessness, crime, education, and political corruption. I'm Leo Zaki, and I'm running for governor in California.
All right, folks, we are back with America Matters. I'm Leo Zaki, and joining me today is Candace Beaumont. She's been giving us quite the bit of insight here with what's going on from digital currency to tokenization, and how can people just learn more about what the top dogs are doing so that maybe they can get involved in some level. And that's for all of you out there, even me. I want to learn. I'm very curious about it. And, I think a lot of the big question on everybody's mind is, where is the future heading for us? And where can, average folks find a way to invest and grow their wealth?
No, I think you just need to look for sectors that are going to outperform. So I think, look, there's a lot of growth that's going to come out of artificial intelligence, and there's a lot of old world economy jobs that might be lost due to artificial intelligence. So I think AI is a great area that regular folks can kind of look at for kind of achieving alpha in their personal investment portfolio. And, I think cybersecurity is also going to be an interesting area that's going to be highly relevant, where you're going to have a lot of interesting companies that are going to grow and have, significant valuations. And then I think, look, also having some old world investments, I think, as I said earlier, diversification is key to kind of maintaining wealth over different investment cycles and different economic cycles. So I think, look, real estate is a great asset class. I think you have to be careful, like what type of real estate. Like obviously commercial real estate has been tough, and with trends for people to work from home, that might continue to be a tough asset class. Multifamily, it's kind of hard for individuals to go into, but now there's kind of more multifamily investments where you can take a piece of a fund or something like that. So that can be interesting for individuals. So I think it's just good to have a lot of asset diversification, and then to know that be really conservative with leverage, because if we're at the end of this bull market, the people that are levered, when you're levered and things are going up, you're going to make a lot more money. But when you're levered and things go down, you're going to lose it all. So you kind of want to chip away and be conservative, but not risk losing it all.
Right. And don't ever risk anything that you're not willing to lose.
Yeah,
exactly. And don't put money out that you don't necessarily need tomorrow. There's no real get rich quick scheme.
Exactly.
You're talking about long-term plays that are going to help, turn that investment into something that's worth a heck of a lot more over years, not next week.
Exactly.
So, that's the other thing when it comes to investing, I think, is folks got to realize that, when you make an investment, it's a long-term play, not like, let's put it on black, so to speak. But we were talking a little bit about how it's difficult for families to when they get to that third generation and kind of keeping the kids on the ball. And you're an athlete from what I understand. I grew up playing golf and tennis, and I know you're quite the tennis player. And how does that all kind of like there's an analogy that you have that kind of fits into this with tennis.
Yeah, no, I think, look, I think I always tend to get along well with people who are former athletes or have been in the military. And I think there's a discipline that you have when you have that background, and there's a focus and a determination and a dedication and a work ethic. And I think that translates into other areas in life. And actually, Lehman Brothers, the CEO had a mandate to hire athletes, and he tracked their performance. And they found universally all the athletes they hired outperformed everyone else in the firm. And I think it's because, from a young age, they've had to be like super focused, super disciplined, super sharp. And also I find that people who are athletes have more of they have more of a cool personality. That's why athletes are always the cool people in the school, right? But they really do have more of a cool personality, so they don't have a chip on their shoulder, and they're kind of humble, and they're used to their coaches screaming at them and telling them what to do and telling them how to perform better and tell them you can achieve excellence if you do this and you can achieve excellence if you do that, and you do this wrong and you need to do this on your serve and you need to do this on your backhand and you just mess that up. And they don't have as much ego when people give them feedback. Whereas if you go to a regular person and you say, oh, you did that wrong, and you did that wrong, and you need to fix this, they might take offense and they might have an ego and they might not like you. And rather than taking the feedback and internalizing it and saying, okay, I want to be a better person, thank you so much for helping me to be better, they're going to be upset that you criticize them. So I think in sports, people tend to have more of a grounded outlook, and they're more mentally tough and mentally healthy. I think when you're playing sports, your endorphins are going. So, people generally have like a kind of a cool, happy vibe about them.
Mm.
And if you look at the general population, that's not a given. So I think there's a lot of things, a lot of edge, obviously, just even beyond the discipline and the work ethic and the determination, all which translate into business in an amazing way. In the more kind of, EQ side of things that athletes tend to have as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I play ice hockey, but I also play sports like golf, where golf, no matter who I'm playing with or against, it's always, the way I look at golf is it's always me versus myself every time I go to hit the ball. But when it comes to like team sports, like for me with hockey, for example, my performance impacts those around me, and I don't want to let those people down around me. So I always want to, play to the best I can and skate the hardest I can and, do the dumb things like get in front of the puck when somebody's about to rip a slap shot, sort of thing. So, I mean, there's definitely a difference when it comes to the type of sports. But I mean, I think in general, being involved in sports is a great way to team build. You learn a hell of a lot about yourself. And it also, it's, obviously it's great physical activity, but it's just, there's so many things that not only you can learn about yourself, but you can also learn about how others interact and you interact with others. And that translates into the professional and business world.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. No, and I think it's great. I think more people should be involved in sports as much as possible. I think it's a great thing. And I have to agree. A very good friend of mine, he's a very avid gym goer, and he busts his butt over at his place of employment, and he's climbing the ranks. But I do know what you mean. When you have that discipline, and I think a lot of people get very comfortable in today's, in the first world and in modern society with all the creature comforts that we have literally at our fingertips on our phones, that people have kind of lost, that drive in some way, and people get coddled a lot. And that kind of goes back to the whole, families kind of, hard to keep the wealth by the third generation, as you mentioned.
Yep, 100%.
Do you see a lot? I mean, do you see that like people just, because I mean, obviously you get to a certain status and you want your children not to have to go through the quote unquote hardships that you went through, but you want them to actually do stuff. And Do you notice, is there anything that like the really successful families that you work with make their children do or their grandchildren do?
Look, I think some of the families have training at a young age, and like I've heard of storybooks like the Three Little Pigs. One little pig saves, one little pig spends, one little pig gives it all away, right? And so they teach kids like this is what you can do with your money. You can save, you can spend, or you can do philanthropy. And so there are kind of training programs that some wealthy families have to kind of teach their kids about things. And then as they get older, they kind of learn the basics of finance and stocks and bonds. And then when they become teenagers, they start to meet some of the investment professionals that are managing the money. And then some families, look at Elon Musk. He's taking his 4-year-old to meetings with the president of the United States, at least when he was friends with the president of the United States. But he's taking his his kid everywhere. So even though the kid is 4, you're learning by osmosis, and you're seeing all these things, and it's filtering into your brain. So I think a lot of families sometimes take their kids to meetings when they're 12, 13, 14. And I think Larry Fink of BlackRock did that with his son, and I worked with Josh Fink for a while, and he was when he was 21 years old, and he was like a 32-year-old because he'd already been working with his father and looking at investments as like a teenager. So it really kind of gives someone an edge in business.
No, I know exactly what you mean. My grandmother would take. Well, I used to go down to the office when I was a little kid and go and see all that stuff. But when I was 15, my grandmother would take me to the California Poultry Federation's board meetings, and I'd shadow them in D.C. and watch them meet with all the top people, the senators and the congressmen, the USDA, FDA, all that. And when I was 18, I was given the opportunity to become a board member, and I ran with it. And then when I went and worked at my family's business, they made me start at the bottom, doing, the regular entry level job. And I did that for like 2.5, 3 years. And then they made me have to then go do every single job in the company without using pneumatic cutting tools to earn my position as vice president. And that really, I think, definitely helped shape me as I was. Now, not everybody has the opportunity to work in a family business. So, having that grounding and that involvement from the parental perspective and getting involved and being involved in your kids' lives, not just like, it's very difficult because so many people that they got a lot of things going on. They have these responsibilities on top of being parents, and, they're trying to keep the net worth going. They're trying to keep their, whatever it is they're doing going. And so it's hard to find that balance, I think, for a lot of folks. And then sometimes the kids don't necessarily get the parenting that they deserve, and things can happen where they, make poor choices in life. So, but those are some of the things that I think can happen. But there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens in high net worth families, and more money, more problems is what they say. So there's always a lot of things that can transpire, and I think that this has been a really eye-opening and great learning opportunity to be sitting here and talking with you, Candace. I really appreciate it, and just tell everybody again how they can get involved and learn about the magazine and subscribe to it.
If they go to www.impactwealth.org, so that's just impactwealth.org, and there'll be a button there to subscribe, and it's free to get like the digital magazines. So if you want the physical one, it's like $100 a year, but if you want the digital ones, it's free, so you can get access to all this data and all this information for free.
I think that's great that you make that tool available to so many people. So make sure you go and check it out. It's a great tool, folks. There's a lot of ways to make it out there, and there are literally people like Candace giving you them for free. So take advantage of them, make something happen, because it's your future, it's your life. Don't be subject to the world around you. Conquer it. You can do it. You have the power. Candace, thank you so much for joining us on America Matters. And to everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see all of you on the next episode. Have a great rest of your day.